The metallic echo of my heels on the polished concrete floor of the hangar always makes me smile. It's the sound of power, of ownership, of a life I built with my own two hands. I rest my palm against the cool silver skin of the jet, the faint scent of fuel and leather wrapping around me like a strange kind of perfume. To most people, this plane is just a machine. To me, it's a declaration. I made it. Funny, though, every time I walk into this hangar, I remember the day my cousin Ryan snatched my car keys out of my hand like a playground bully. I was 19, broke, humiliated, and he laughed at me for even daring to dream. Back then, I didn't have the courage to fight back. Now, I fly above it all. My phone buzzes on the seat of my black leather handbag. I glance at the screen. It's a message from Ryan. For a second, I just stare at his name glowing against a glass, my chest tightening with a mix of emotions I wish I'd buried years ago. He says he's in town. He wants to see me. I let out a breath, smoothing the silk sleeve of my blouse down my arm. Outside the hangar doors, the morning sun is cutting sharp lines across the tarmac, gold and white. The irony is almost too much to bear. He once stole the keys to my old rusted car. Today, I'm standing in front of my jet. And he has no idea. I was 19 when it happened, though sometimes it feels like yesterday. I can still smell the sharp mix of gasoline and dust in the driveway of my aunt's house in Dallas. It was one of those sweltering July afternoons where the heat pressed down on your shoulders like a punishment. My cousin Ryan stood there, grinning, holding my car keys high above his head like some kind of prize he'd won. "Come on, Rachel," he sneered, jangling the keys. "You think you're going to drive off and conquer the world in that piece of junk? You're not going anywhere." Laughter spilled from his friends on the porch. Each laugh stabbed deeper, making my cheeks burn hot. My car wasn't much. It was a faded blue Honda with a cracked windshield, but it was my freedom. And in that moment, he stripped it away from me, reducing me to a girl standing in front of everyone, helpless. I remember my hands trembling, nails digging into my palms. My throat felt tight, my voice stuck somewhere between rage and shame. I wanted to scream at him, to demand my keys back, but the words collapsed before they reached my tongue. Instead, I stood frozen, blinking hard to hold back tears. It wasn't just about the car. It was about every mocking comment, every eye roll, every reminder that in my family's eyes, I was the dreamer who'd never amount to anything. Ryan made sure of it that day. Later, when the laughter died down and I finally got my keys back, I drove off with the windows down, the wind doing nothing to cool the fire burning inside me. That night, I cried in the tiny bedroom I rented in a shared apartment, the walls thin enough for me to hear my neighbors laughing at a sitcom. My chest ached with humiliation. But underneath the ache, something else began to form. I pulled open the top drawer of my nightstand and held the small silver locket my grandmother had given me before she passed. Inside was a note folded into a perfect square, her handwriting neat and strong. "Don't let them clip your wings. You were born to fly." My grandmother believed in me when no one else did. And that night, as the moonlight spilled across my bedsheets, I swore silently that one day, I'd prove them all wrong. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew the fire inside me would not be put out, not by Ryan, not by anyone. That was the night I made my first real promise to myself. I would take back my freedom, and I would turn there. The morning after my promise to myself, I woke up with swollen eyes and an empty bank account, but an unshakable determination. I worked 2 jobs then, waitressing at a diner off Highway 75 and taking night shifts at a gas station. Neither paid much, but they kept me afloat. More importantly, they allowed me to save scraps of money for something I hadn't even dared to say out loud yet: flying lessons. It started as a wild idea, a way to prove my grandmother right, to take her words, born to fly, literally. I still remember the first time I stepped into the tiny flight school on the outskirts of Dallas. The office smelled like old paper and coffee grounds. A poster of Amelia Earhart hung crooked on the wall, and behind the desk sat a woman with cropped gray hair and sharp, kind eyes. Her name was Linda Parker, a retired Air Force pilot. When I told her I wanted to learn to fly, she studied me for a long moment. I braced for laughter, the same laughter I always got. Instead, she nodded once and said, "It's going to be tough. But if you're willing to fight for it, I'll teach you." Those words lit something inside me. The next 3 years were the hardest of my life. I worked double shifts, slept in 4-hour stretches, and scraped together tuition one installment at a time. My hands blistered from pumping gas, my feet ached from long shifts at the diner, and yet I never missed a single lesson. Each time I gripped the yoke of that rattling Cessna, the sky stretched wide open before me, and I felt closer to the woman I wanted to be. Of course, there were failures. My first solo landing was rough. I bounced down the runway like a skipping stone, heart hammering, tears stinging my eyes. I thought Linda would tell me I wasn't cut out for it. Instead, she handed me a bottle of water, smirked, and said, "Well, you didn't die. That's a start." Her dry humor kept me going. Slowly, painfully, I got better. I logged hours, passed exams, earned my pilot's license. Then I started working odd jobs in aviation, ferrying small planes, assisting charter companies, anything that would let me climb another rung of the ladder. At 24, I landed my first major client, a Dallas businessman who needed regular private flights to Houston. That contract paid more than I'd made in an entire year at the diner. For the first time, I wasn't surviving. I was moving forward. From there, opportunities snowballed. One client recommended me to another, and soon I was flying wealthy executives across the country. With every paycheck, I saved, invested, and dreamed bigger. Eventually, I wasn't just piloting, I was buying. First a used prop plane, then a sleek business jet. I started a charter company, and by 30, I owned 3 planes and a staff of 10. And through it all, I told my family nothing. On social media, I posted modest updates, coffee cups, sunsets, vague captions. No flashy cars, no bragging. Let them think I was just another struggling girl trying to make it. What they didn't know was that while Ryan still borrowed rides and made excuses, I was building an empire with wings. Every secret contract signed, every jet polished to perfection, was another quiet victory. I wasn't just learning to fly airplanes. I was learning to fly above every insult, every doubt, every attempt to clip my wings. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day when the Texas sun painted everything in gold. I had just returned from a business trip to Miami when my phone rang. The name flashing across the screen nearly made me laugh out loud. Ryan. For a second, I debated ignoring it. But curiosity won. "Rachel," his voice said, tentative, almost too casual. "I'm in Dallas. Thought I'd swing by. Haven't seen you in years." I could hear the background noise, his kids shouting, his wife asking where he'd put her purse. The same chaotic energy I remembered. Something in me softened, but then I remembered that driveway, those jangling keys, that mocking laughter. I agreed to meet him anyway. When Ryan and 2 other family members arrived at the address I'd texted, they thought they were pulling up to some office park. Instead, the black gates of my private hangar slid open with a low hum, revealing the gleaming silver jet inside, the hangar lights glinting off its polished surface. Ryan stopped walking the moment he stepped inside. His wife gasped audibly, covering her mouth. My aunt, who once told me I should be more realistic, whispered something like a prayer. And me? I just stood there, perfectly poised in a cream silk blouse, navy trousers tailored to perfection, heels clicking against the glossy floor as I approached them. "Welcome," I said, my voice calm but deliberate. "This is my hangar." Ryan blinked. "Wait, you work here?" "No," I corrected softly, savoring the moment. "I own it." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. I could see their eyes darting across the room. The sleek black leather seats in the lounge corner, the framed certificates on the wall, the company logo with my name elegantly scripted beneath it. R. Carter Aviation. Ryan's mouth opened, then closed. His face flushed pink, and for once in his life, he had nothing smart to say. I gestured toward the jet, its nose angled proudly toward the doors. "That one's mine. The first jet I bought outright." The second one is in Houston right now on a charter flight. And the third is in Los Angeles, prepping for a client trip tomorrow. My aunt let out a soft gasp. Ryan's wife shook her head, as if refusing to believe. This is yours? Ryan finally muttered. His voice cracked the way mine once had, standing powerless in front of him. I smiled, tilting my head ever so slightly. Do you remember the day you took my car keys? Laughed at me in front of everyone. His eyes flickered with recognition. Shame tightened his jaw. Well, I continued, my tone light, almost playful. You were right. I didn't get very far in that Honda. But I found another way. Turns out I didn't need a car. I needed wings. Their silence was priceless, an entire history of underestimation unraveling in real time. Ryan finally looked around again, his expression caught between awe and guilt. I didn't know. No, I agreed. You never ask. I let the moment linger. Let them take in the spotless glass windows, the polished chrome, the quiet efficiency of the staff in the background. Every detail was proof of the life I'd built while they assumed I was failing. For years, they had written me off as the fragile dreamer. Now they were standing in the empire I had created from that very dream. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, searching for words. My aunt's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. His wife clutched her handbag tighter, her gaze darting everywhere but at me. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The hangar itself spoke louder than any words I could muster. At last, I broke the silence with a steady, confident voice. This is who I am now. And this, I ran my fingers along the gleaming edge of the jet's wing, is what I built when no one believed in me. For a long minute after my revelation, no one said anything. The only sound was the faint hum of the hangar's ventilation and the ticking of Ryan's wristwatch. He looked smaller than I remembered, as though the weight of the moment was pressing him down. Finally, my aunt cleared her throat. Rachel, we didn't know. We thought you were just trying to get by. I nodded slowly. That's because you never cared to look closer. You were too busy dismissing me. Ryan shifted his weight uncomfortably, hands in his pockets. Look, I was just a stupid kid back then. I didn't mean. I held up my hand, cutting him off. Don't try to rewrite history now that you're standing in my world. You humiliated me, Ryan. You made sure I never forgot it. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. For the first time, hearing those words didn't sting. They didn't heal either. They just existed, floating in the air. You want my help, don't you? I asked. The question startled even me, but I already knew the answer. Ryan's eyes flickered, and my aunt's silence confirmed it. They hadn't come here just to admire. They came because they needed something. Ryan hesitated. We've had some struggles. Financial ones. I was hoping maybe you could. There it was. The ask. I crossed my arms, heels firm against the floor. If I help, it won't be free. Not in money, but in terms of change. His eyebrows knit together. What do you mean? I took a slow step closer. I mean this. If I give you a lifeline, it comes with conditions. You will not raise your kids the way you treated me. You will not belittle their dreams, no matter how impossible they sound. You will not turn into the man who steals their keys just to laugh at them. That ends here. Ryan blinked, stunned. My aunt pressed a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide. And you, I added, turning to her, will stop poisoning people with your realistic advice. You think you're protecting them from disappointment, but really you're just cutting their wings before they even try to fly. If I support you, I want you to support others, not drag them down. The silence that followed was heavy, but not hostile. It was contemplative, as if the walls themselves were waiting to hear their answer. I'm not here to punish you. I continued softly, my tone firm, yet compassionate. But I'm also not that 19-year-old girl you laughed at. If you want my help, then you change. Not for me. For yourselves. For the people who come after you. Ryan's throat bobbed as he swallowed. And if we don't? I gave a small, almost amused smile. Then you walk out of this hangar the same way you walked in, empty-handed. My aunt let out a shaky breath, her shoulders sagging. Ryan looked at the polished floor as if it might swallow him whole. Finally, he nodded. Slowly, but he did. It wasn't triumph I felt in that moment. It was balance. For once, I wasn't beneath them, begging to be seen. We were eye to eye, no, higher. Because the power was mine now. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. I didn't expect miracles, but the changes were undeniable. Ryan called me one evening, not to ask for money, but to tell me he'd enrolled his son in a summer coding camp because the kid wouldn't stop talking about building robots. His tone carried pride, not mockery. My aunt, too, surprised me. She sent me a message with a photo of a neighborhood girl she'd encouraged to apply for a scholarship. The caption read simply, "You were right. I need to stop crushing dreams." It wasn't redemption, not fully, but it was a start. I kept my boundaries firm. I offered guidance, not handouts. Advice, not rescues. For the first time in my life, my family had to meet me as equals, not as someone they pitied, but as someone they respected. One evening, after a long flight from Los Angeles, I found myself back in the hangar. The sun had dipped low, painting streaks of orange and pink across the sky. I slid my fingers over the locket I always carried, the one my grandmother had given me. I opened it, tracing the familiar words in her handwriting. "Don't let them clip your wings. You were born to fly." I smiled through the sting of tears. She'd been gone for years, but in that moment, I felt her beside me, watching as her once broken granddaughter stood tall in the empire she built. I thought back to the girl I was at 19, red-faced, humiliated, standing in a driveway while Ryan dangled my car keys. That pain had once felt like the end of me, but it wasn't. It was the beginning. The hangar lights buzzed softly overhead. My jet gleamed under them like a promise, a mirror of the woman I had become, resilient, unapologetic, unstoppable. I took a deep breath, letting the cool night air fill my lungs. This was my closure, my peace. The laughter that once haunted me was gone, replaced by silence, and in that silence, strength. I closed the locket and whispered, almost like a prayer, "You were right, Grandma. I was born to fly." Then, with a steady smile, I glanced back at the jet, its wings stretching wide, ready for tomorrow's sky. "My cousin once took my car keys," I murmured, voice low but certain. "But now, I park my jet in my hangar.